On this episode, I'm here to blow the whistle on all this UFO stuff, but I can't give you literally any detail whatsoever.
I think a lot of these people are just good soldiers, and it's more than just that, right?
As soon as we finish this congressional hearing, we're going to the back room, we're sitting down in a private setting.
So, personally, I'd be scared as shit.
Do you think that happened?
I know it didn't happen, and if it did, we didn't get any information, let's put it that way.
Raise your glass to mysteries, cocktails and conspiracies. Dive into these histories, cocktails and conspiracies. Raise your glass to mysteries, cocktails and conspiracies. Uncover those anomalies, cocktails and conspiracies.
Where have all the whistleblowers gone? I feel like that should be like the intro to a song, Mr. Phillips. Here we are, back again, ladies and gentlemen. Cocktails and conspiracies, because it doesn't quite matter what we say on this podcast. We get limited tags or denied tags by YouTube in any which way or form. So here we are, once again. Cheers and welcome back.
You're fired
Where have they
up.
gone, Mr. Phillips?
He's
I'm
fired
ready
up.
to go.
I was gonna say sea tales and conspiracies, but fuck it. Cocktails and conspiracies, baby. Where have
care.
all the whistleblowers gone?
Ooh, you know, that's exactly what was running through my mind in leading up to this podcast. Because I've been since last week's episode, which you can go right back there, youtube.com/@conspiracyrealist or conspiracyrealist.com for all of our social channels, and check out last week's episodes.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about whistleblowers, and we kind of moved away from it because that became hyper focused on a completely separate topic. But now we're back, and that conversation is the catalyst for me to really want to have a bigger conversation with you, Mr. Phillips, here tonight, right now.
All right, if I can get unmuted, I'm all about it, baby.
Okay, well, let's effing go. I guess the easiest place to start here is, as we were going through last week's episode, I couldn't help but just think that every time there's a major breaking story in the news or some new intel comes out, there's always like a string of like whistleblowers that are attached to it, or somebody comes out and they say all this, they have all this information, and just wait, hang tight, it's all coming soon, you're going to hear about it any single day. And then all of a sudden you wait a month, you wait 6 months, you wait a week, a year, and absolutely nothing happens. And honestly, I'm just kind of tired of it. I'm fed up. I'm annoyed. It's bothersome to me because you see words like psyop getting thrown all over the internet all the time. And I think that it's completely overused. And I really don't buy into too much of the psyop thing. I know it happens. There's been people that have admitted to it, but I think people just it's one of those words they just kind of like throw out there like all the time. Like, like goat, goat's the other new popular one. Everybody's a goat. You do something really good, goat. And it like takes the concept of being the greatest away. Well, the psyop thing does the same thing, right? But I have to wonder now, like, what is going on? And of course we have specific, I can't even speak, I'm so fired up. We have specific examples that we're going to get into tonight. But Mr. Phillips, you know where I'm coming from. I'm fired up.
He's fired up, baby. See, I thought you were going to want to talk. You were 100% within reason, right? And we touched on it last week, specifically about how, like, the media will just stop covering something. And it's kind of related, right? It's loosely
100%.
related, if you will. I thought you were going to want to talk about the whistleblowers who disappear, as in
that's fine
no
too.
longer exist on this planet.
That's fine too, and I think we can kind of blend the both of them together. I don't think there's I take that back. I think there's a big difference in some of them, and maybe that's what we can kind of dig through. Is there a reason behind maybe why some of these whistleblowers have quieted off? But that really wasn't my sole intention here. As I try to pull up some extra notes, my real intention was honestly just the Virginia Guffrey story leans more into what you're talking about. But as we looked at that, we talked about the declassification task force a little bit, very briefly, in the Virginia Guffrey episode last week.
We did actually an episode on that, which got nowhere.
Right. It got nowhere. It got completely shadow banned on YouTube. Yeah. I mean, more or less banned. They told us they couldn't be promoted or anything. So that has to do with elections. Didn't talk anything about elections whatsoever, which I said that word. That means this one's done too. But
in that doesn't matter at this point.
Declassification task force episode we did back in about November when that whole thing started coming up. Anna Paulina Luna, goodness gracious golly gee, she came out and she kicks off this task force. We're going to release all these documents. And we even said at the time, the likelihood of a lot of these documents, hitting the wire is slim to none. But at that time, they had just started the second of, now two of these like UFO hearings in Congress. And we've got people lining up to give all of this information about these documents and these videos and all of this stuff that they know. And it bothered me a little bit at the time that they said things along the lines of, I can't discuss that. I'll discuss that in a skiff, which I don't even really know what the skiff was at that time. I had to Google it.
I had to Google that.
Yeah, just ridiculous words. I'm here to blow the whistle on all this UFO stuff, but I can't give you literally any detail whatsoever. I can't confirm, deny any of your questions. I'm just here saying that I know some stuff about some stuff that has to do with UFOs. It's the only thing I could say, or UAPs as they call them now. And it bothered me then, but I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, they're going to go behind closed doors and we should get a little bit more clarity on this. And it happened twice, two different events with that. One of the main players in this was David Grush. He comes to infamy because he's the one blowing the whistle on all of these UFO programs. Guy seems a little dorky. Kind of hard for me to buy initially that he was even part of these programs, but I mean, his credentials seem to check out. He knows his shit, so he's not an idiot. And he just kind of goes on that first congressional hearing. And then again, he's back in that second one, I believe, too. But he kept pounding the word skiff. And again, like, that's literally the first I've ever even heard of the word. I'm sure it was, if you're in that government world, maybe you know more too. But, and so I'm thinking, like, coming out of this, like, this guy is going to just blow the lid off of all this stuff, because at this point his face is out there. So like, nothing else is going to happen to this guy. And when they're talking about this skiff, my interpretation of that, Mr. Phillips, is as soon as we finish this congressional hearing, we're going to the back room, we're sitting down in a private setting, and I'm just going to unleash the fury on all this stuff that's happened. And now you guys know where to look, where to go, who to talk to, and I'm protected because I already blew the lid off these guys. Do you think that happened?
I know it didn't happen. And if it did, we didn't get any information. Let's put it that way.
It's 2023. The first congressional hearing is in 2020. I'm sorry. It's 2025. The first congressional hearing happened in 2023. Grush will not even meet Anna Paulina Luna or any other of these congressional Congress people to do that skiff. He's went completely, not dark, because he's still in circles, but he's dodging interviews. He's not going to DC because he said he's worried about himself. Get this MFer on a Zoom call and let him talk about it. And I don't understand why it needs to be behind the scenes. Get on a Zoom, get on Riverside, broadcast it out to the world. Hey guys, this is what I've got and what I'm doing. Enough is enough. We keep getting this all the time. Jeremy Corbell's another big one. Every single week, you got something else. I've got just late breaking news and I've got this crazy thing. I know this thing, but I can't tell you who it is, what it is, or when it's going to happen. But it's coming. Something's going to happen in the next 12 months. And then literally anything that happens in that space. I told you something was going to happen. Yeah. It's the most ludicrous grift. And I use that word gingerly because it's another one's thrown around too much. But it's the most ludicrous grift that happens on the internet. And it's driving me to the point of insanity. And that's where I'm fired up tonight.
Corbell had he was going nuts a few months ago on X, on all social medias, and it was kind of hard to follow. Maybe you might do a better job of explaining it than I would, but it was something to the effect of, they're gonna tell you a lot. There's a big lie coming. Do you remember that? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
There's a big lie coming. They're gonna tell you something about UAPs, something about, aliens, but it's gonna be a lie. And I couldn't wrap my head around that. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Like, I don't know.
So, everyone that watches this show at this point, that likes and subscribes, follows on Spotify, they know that I'm a big pro wrestling fan. In pro wrestling, you've got the dirt sheets, right? That's your media there. But it's not structured like media would be anywhere else. But it aligns really well to, like, these occult type conspiracy type networks where you're getting the same types of people. Like there's no real credentials generally. It's just somebody that like launches a social media page or a Twitter channel and they report news. In the pro wrestling space, what you see is a guy like Dave Meltzer, who's a dipshit. He's been producing content for, I don't know, 40 years or maybe even longer. And he has like a newsletter and stuff. People pay to hear his input. And what he'll literally do is he'll say one thing and he'll say the polar opposite. He'll say both options. And then that way, when one of them is true, he goes back and sources that soundbite that he said it was true. And if the other thing, or if he says something just so outrageous and doesn't even have like the fallback, or maybe a third thing happens that he didn't plan, the excuse is always plans changed. Oh yeah, it's chaos behind the scenes of pro wrestling because Vince McMahon ripped up the papers and changed the plans right on the spot that day. That's why. And it's just like, it's a laughing stock, right? Like everyone, it's kind of like an inside joke that everyone knows about. How this guy still makes money, I don't even know. But I've noticed the same thing a lot in this conspiracy space. Plenty of them we can talk about. But for tonight's sake, even this one here, I'm not suggesting that Corbell is totally full of shit. I think that whole thing with George Knapp, right? When he meets Bob Lazar, he's just a videographer at that time. He's a director, like creating a film. I think he was really young and naive, and I think that catapults this guy's career to new highs. And now he's got to sort of bridge the gap because now you're doing all these appearances and shit, and all you've got to talk about is Bob Lazar, whose story is 40 years old. It's great. It brought Bob Lazar back into the forefront there, but Lazar doesn't really care. Like, he doesn't want to be in the spotlight. He doesn't really want to do these conferences. The gravy train with Lazar had to stop, and it wasn't going to go any further. I don't doubt that relationship also was the catalyst for other relationships, and Corbell did get some really good information. What I think has happened in the interim, though, is that he's out. He's dry, and he doesn't have anything to talk about.
You need to stay relevant, right?
You need to stay relevant, exactly. And so I think what you're talking about actually stems from that second congressional hearing, and they did like a whole like TMZ documentary on it and whatnot. And Corbell like lost his mind because he handed in like the documents for this program called the Immaculate Constellation, right? And I guess like the Congress people didn't mention his name when talking about it, and he flipped the lid. He just lost it. And that's when he walks out of the Congress thing. And his film crew is there. Like, it's not like the media's there. It's his film crew. He's like, the U.S. government has lied to this people. It's lied to you. Well, the lie was that Jeremy Corbell didn't hand this to us 5 minutes ago before we started. That was the lie. That was what he was freaking out about. He subsequently has went on this rant saying both things. We're going to learn a lot in the year 2025. Mind you, it's May. We haven't learned anything. But something you're going to hear is the truth, and something you're going to hear is a lie. Well, thanks for setting the stage.
It's so vague. It's so vague. It's like, don't fucking say anything, dude. Like, you're just spouting bullshit out of your mouth.
And that's what's been driving me nuts, man. Is like, it's just, once some of these folks get any sort of notoriety, all of a sudden it turns into like this sea of black vagueness, right? And just like little tidbits here and here. And like, it's like the Alex Jones method. Like, oh, the world is going to end every single week. Those jerk offs that stand with the cardboard signs and try to preach to you to sell yourself to God because the rapture is coming. Yeah, well, the rapture's been coming every year. It's like freaking climate change, for Christ's sakes. The world is ending every year, every decade for the last 55 years or longer, maybe 100 years. There's always, this fear tactic that's used there. And it works. I get that. But what bothers me the most is that we're on like the precipice of major things being dropped. News is out there. Stories are out there. And these people are like, they're shitting on it. Right? And like, it already wasn't taken seriously. And people wondered why. And now that we've got media at our fingertips, like X isn't censoring anybody. So people could talk about anything they want. And you have the opportunity to bring this stuff to the forefront, which is working. Instead of doing the work, finding more people to come out and speak about it, and just releasing good information, you're just like releasing nonsense, which is just obliterating the credibility of everything that existed up to this point. And I'm just, it irritates me, man, because it's, us guys, like anybody that's been here, they like, subscribe, they follow us on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify. I don't even know what I said already. I think I said those already twice. But like, subscribe, click those buttons. Anybody that does that knows that, we're not spelling late breaking news here at all. We're talking about topics. But it gets harder for us to talk about these topics and be taken seriously when you've got nonsensical maniacs out there just like spewing nonsense.
Yeah.
Again, using the same words over and over again, but you get the idea.
You're
Fired up.
Such
Fired
a
up.
hack. No, I know what you mean.
Nuts.
Let's go back to the David Grush thing real quick, right? So you talked about psyops in the beginning, and then we talked about David Grush. So I want to pose a theory to you and get your thoughts on this. So, Project Bluebeam. Anybody that's interested in this channel probably knows what Project Bluebeam is. If you don't, in its most simplest form, it's essentially that the U.S. government, and more than just the U.S., but the kind of collective world governments, are aware of existence of other life and their ability to traverse time and space and visit us, and they are gradually preparing us for the eventual disclosure, right? And so they might do things like the New Jersey drones, right? And it gets people all freaked out and kind of see, okay, how do people handle this, and so on and so forth, right? And that's kind of really, in a very simple nutshell form, what Project Bluebeam is. What if...
Time out. I think you're confusing a couple things. Project Bluebeam is, yes, it's building us towards that, but the whole premise of it is to undermine religion to create one world government.
Correct. That's the... Yes. Correct. Yes. Right.
So that's it could be staged. It could be staged. It might not be actual aliens landing here. The idea was always holograms, which is ridiculous to even think of. But go ahead. Sorry. Finish your thought.
So what if David Grush and these congressional hearings are a part of that?
I mean, that goes back to the PSYOP thing, like you said, and that's possible. It's certainly possible, and when we watched that second congressional hearing, and I think we alluded to this in the Declassification Task Force episode, which was a good one. It probably has got like 10 views because YouTube blacklisted it, but look for it. It's on the channel. We talked about Lou Elizondo, who's another one of the big players in this whistleblower space. And it's interesting, the Grush and the Elizondo piece, right? Because you've got these guys that are coming out and they're self-proclaimed whistleblowers. And to this is going to your point. You got these guys that come out, they're self-proclaimed whistleblowers, but when they're asked specifics, can't talk about that. Security concern. I'm not at leisure to say that. I don't have clearance to say that. Well, what do you mean you don't have clearance to say that? You're a whistleblower. You don't have clearance to say any of this stuff.
I was going to say, that's the point of being a fucking whistleblower.
Right. And so, there's been a lot of speculation about the motives and maybe who's overseeing these particular people, especially Lou, who now created a freaking book. So again, whenever there's a book, there's money to be made. I mean, listen, they've released a lot of videos and they've released a lot of stuff, which I don't buy the validity of all of them. I think that jellyfish video is the biggest load of crap on that.
We talked about that one a lot.
I can't even fathom people that believe that one. It's a smudge on the screen. Actually, some people have now said that they've proved that it's deflated balloons. So regardless, but like you see these stuff. And actually, you know what? While I'm on that subject, Lou just went up in front of Congress the other day and showed a picture of what looked to be like a saucer UFO over a field. It was immediately disproven, like an hour later, as like irrigation rings in the field, and they showed different angles and stuff. And because like the shadow overlap, and he had to come back out and release a statement. He was like, "Oh, I didn't get to vet this one out." Like, how do you present this in front of the world without vetting it out? Like, I just got it 5 minutes before I came. That's why I showed it. Like, are you nuts? But like, that's the kind of shit that drives me nuts. Is like, and that leads me to believe that you might be on something too. Is if you're getting clearance to talk about specific things, well, that means the government's okay with it getting out, which means one of two things. One, you don't really care anymore about it. Or two, it's probably bullshit. And it gives people enough to talk about that they don't have to worry about any sort of, intelligence leak or government security risk. I think you're onto something with that. I don't want to believe that, because the idea of somebody coming out and broadcasting this truth is awesome. The idea that we're having or have had UFO discussions at the congressional level that is now public record and on national television is amazing. It's great. But we're being fed lies.
Yeah, but
and that's where I have the problem.
It's great if it's not all bullshit, right? And so you don't even need to. So you'll get some people, and I'm sure some people will argue this in the comments, whatever, drop it, let us know. you'll get some people that'll say, well, what is it specifically that they want to occupy from, right? They want to occupy your brain with this information so that you're not focused on that. What is that they don't want you focused on? It doesn't matter specifically what that is. And it's not necessarily just one specific thing. And we've talked about this before, right? They'll dangle a carrot over here while they pass a bill over there. Or they send, 400 billion more fucking dollars over to Ukraine, right? It slips something through a fucking bill. And so it doesn't even necessarily have to be one specific thing that they're doing. There was I think it might have been Bill Burr, I forget what comedian it was. Somebody had a really great line, and they were talking specifically about abortion and abortion rights, right? And Bill, if it wasn't you, I apologize, not like you're ever going to see this. But one of the comedians said, hey, that doesn't scare them. That doesn't scare the government. They don't give a fuck about you fighting over abortion because it doesn't impact their overall motive for what they want to do, right? That doesn't frighten them. What frightens them is an educated population of people that catch on to all the bullshit they're doing and then fucking call them out about it. So I guess on this whole rant that I'm on right now, the point is, it's not even necessarily one specific little thing. Like my point is the Grush hearings, all of these hearings, it could all just be bullshit. And it doesn't even have to have anything to do with UFOs, right? It might have absolutely nothing to do with the fact that, they, might have reverse engineered something, or, whether, the UAP theories are true or aren't true, or Project Bluebeam. It's just a distraction. It's just a distraction. Again, I'm not saying it's necessarily that is the case, but it very well could be.
It's got to be. It almost has to be, right? Like, I pulled up a list here of politicians who have promised disclosure in some capacity. And this goes back to friggin' Jimmy Carter, who actually claims that he had experiences himself. And as the U.S. president, like, you have to have some sort of priviness to what's going on. Right. But I mean, more recently, Mike Rounds, South Dakota, Nancy Mace, Anna Paulina Luna, Josh Hawley, Kristen Gillibrand. I mean, these are people that are sitting or have been sitting in a seat recently. Marco Rubio, Ruben Gallego, Mike Gallagher, Tim Burchett, Chuck Schumer, Harry Reid. Now we're back into the 2000s. So like Dennis Kucinich, and then back to Jimmy Carter again there. So, I mean, most of those names, with the exception of Jimmy Carter, Dennis, and Harry Reid stopped in 2017, right? Again, very Senate Majority Leader. It wasn't a small-time guy.
Yeah.
All of these people, most of them have been sitting in Congress right now, or have been within the last 5 years, with some degree of access somewhere. So you can't tell me that somebody doesn't have some insight to something or can find out. What is the point in talking about it at all if you're not going to deliver? And this even goes back to all the documentation too, like that they say they're getting. Go ahead.
I don't know if they do have access to anything though, right? And we've talked about this a lot.
I disagree.
Like, there are, and look, there are certain sectors of intelligence agencies that they don't fucking answer to anybody, man. They don't answer to Congress. True. They don't answer to anybody. I mean, look, I'm not saying that they don't know anything at all whatsoever, but I think a very few select people really know the full and whole truth. It wouldn't be surprising to me if the president doesn't know. The president he's a rental. He's around for 4 years, maybe 8 at most. You're talking about guys in government agencies that have 30, 40, 50-year long careers. The fuck they going to tell the president for? He's in and out in 4 years. They might not even know anything.
No, I agree with that. I guess let me rephrase, is that, like, if you're a congressperson in any given state and you have a military base within your state, I find it hard pressed to believe that you can't nose around with the right amount of people and find out something. I'm not saying that you know everything, but you can find something that gives you some indication that something is going wrong. There are budgets, and we've seen this with Doge already. They walked in a bunch of college interns and were able to pick apart budgets and find where there was leaking money. You mean to tell me a congressperson who should be managing those budgets doesn't know where that money is going, or doesn't know where there's money bleeding? And if there's money bleeding, and it's bleeding into a military installation or some sort of an intelligence organization, and it's within their district, their state, you should at least have an indication. And then when there's speculation and a whistleblower like Grush or Elizondo come up to you and say, hey, We know this is at, McGuire Air Force Base, which is here in New Jersey, but we know it's at, what's the one in Ohio? It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of it. It's where everybody goes.
Yeah, it's going to drive me nuts.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we sound like idiots because we don't know, but I know what you're talking about.
Ohio Air Force
Wright-Patterson?
Base. Wright-Patterson, yep. I didn't even have to look it up. Look at that. We got AI
Bingo.
in Tim's brain. So that's what Neuralink's going to help us there for. We know that there's stuff in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. You mean to tell me Tim Burchett, well, I guess he's not Ohio anyway, but you mean to tell me whoever the congressperson of Ohio can't just waltz on down there and figure out, just what's going on? Oh, hey, like, let me take a look around here. Let me go see. He's Tennessee. Yeah. Let me take a look around. Let me just go see this. Somebody said that there's a location right here. I want to walk there. And even if they don't let you in there, at least you're now checking and you can come out and say, like, that is your duty. And I understand there are security risks. And we can talk a little bit about some of the people that have kind of disappeared or ended too soon because of this stuff. But it goes back to the same thing we've said 1,000 times before is like, there's got to be foot soldiers, right? The people in charge aren't calling out all the work. They're not doing everything, right? There's always like the Ed Snowdens that work there and that are uneasy about what's going on. And I realize that when you get to certain levels, when you're working on this stuff, they are vetting those people out and making sure that they're good soldiers. But when there's a sighting, when there's a craft, when there's a video, there's no guarantee. Like these things aren't always predictable. And there's always going to be a mole or a leak, or there's always going to be that one secretary that's got to use the black marker to mark it off when they're redacting it and putting it on something, right? These people must exist, right? And supposedly these are the ones that are coming out. And we've seen them throughout history in the last several decades because they're the ones lining up the streets that are going to all these panels. There's the one guy in Ancient Aliens that worked for the U.S. Ministry of Defense, Nick Pope, right? You mean to tell me you ran the UK, not U.S., UK Ministry of Defense, and you don't know anything to reveal?
I always found that funny, yeah.
Now, he said it multiple times, because I've watched more in-depth things with him, I can't discuss that. Why not? Why are you allowed to go to these UFO conventions, but when somebody asks you a pointed question about specific cases that you know you could have read those files on, you're saying you can't? With that, you can't discuss. That's what drives me nuts. Where have all the whistleblowers gone? So they're not whistleblowers. They're seeking fame.
Let me ask you this. Do you think it's bullshit, or do you think they're afraid?
Good question. I think it's a combination. I think it's a combination. Go ahead.
Yeah, you work for the U.S. government. Let's say you're similar to Bob Lazar. You're in Area 51, okay? You're working on some compartmentalized project. You have some knowledge that something's going on involving UAPs, extraterrestrial life, whatever it might be. I know you. You would want to broadcast that out to the world, as would I, right? Mm-hmm. You've got kids. You've got a family.
Unless the U.S. government wants to tell me all these things, then I'll keep it to myself. Caveat.
Right? So, personally, as much as I would want to go and tell the world about it, I care way more about my wife and my kids than I do about telling anybody else what I know, as much as it's going to eat away at me, as much as I want to broadcast that to the world. I'm going to protect my family first. So, personally, I'd be scared as shit. Especially, and we'll get to it, there have been quite a few whistleblowers who have disappeared.
Lindsay Mills, Lonnie, Elizabeth, Jessica, Edward.
Those are not Shane's kids, by the way. I don't know who he's talking about, but those are not your kids.
Those are the names of family members of Edward Snowden that are all still alive. Edward Snowden was the biggest whistleblower leaker in probably United States history. I understand that if you know what happens in the U.S. government or in some of these black budget projects, that there is a level of fear that goes along with it. But here's the thing. There have been plenty of opportunities for people to whistleblow. You're on your deathbed. This is 2025. Pick up a cell phone, go on Facebook Live, go on X Live, because Facebook will delete the video. Go on X Live and tell everybody everything you know. You're on your way out anyway. What's the problem if they took you out a day or two early? It'll probably save you some suffering, right? I buy it to a degree. What Ed Snowden did is he made all of his plans. I mean, he got the information, he put it on a USB, snuck it out, made these plans in advance. He knew he was going to do this and set everything up for himself. He didn't promote it and say, in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to drive on down to Washington, D.C. I'm going to stay at the blah, blah, blah hotel in room 123, and I'm going to then go meet. No, he's not broadcasting all this information so that you're opening yourself up for it. You just sit down. He sat down with a reporter and said, by the way, this is everything that's happening. Here's all the information. Boom. It wasn't like, I'm going to do it today. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to write a book about it. And then like in a year from now, I'm going to give you a little bit more information. It was, here's everything. Figure it out yourself. And that's exactly what Elon Musk did when he bought Twitter, by the way. He called in a bunch of independent journalists. Michael Schellenberger was one of them, and he was at those congressional hearings, and we'll get back to that. Here you go. Here's the stack. I'm making a stack of books, but it's not a stack of books. Here's all the files. Have at it. We're not going to roll this out. Here's everything. That's what should be happening. And for me, it casts doubt that this is serious when you're doing talks, when you're writing books, when you're going on television shows, but then you're subsequently saying, I can't talk about that part. Why are you allowed to go and monetize this, but there's like a boundary to it? You look at somebody like Linda Moulton Howe, right? And she interviews people, and I understand from her context that you're not releasing a lot of stuff because you're protecting your sources. Fine. But she's putting out a ton of information all the time with a lot of specifics as well. I've got more respect for that aspect of it when you're protecting your sources than I have when like you've got first person view and you're going on these tours and you're talking about like, well, you're at like, let's say like a UFO conference or a UFO TV show or whatever it is. And you're saying like, oh yeah, well this could happen. And I know firsthand whether it did or not. And you're using your title in whatever that government position was, wherever it was in the world. And then you're coming back, and I'm not picking on one person specifically, but then you're coming back and saying, yeah, but I can't talk about it. I can't tell you yes or no. Well, why are you on the show? The implicit idea is that it's yes.
Those people aren't really whistleblowers then, are they? Right? Because they haven't...
Well, let's
look at David Grush. Let's just... And I know we kind of keep going back to Grush, but he's kind of forefront of this UAP conversation that we're having right now.
Yeah.
As it pertains to whistleblowers. If you're really going to truly whistleblow, you're going to give facts. You're going to provide evidence, right? You're going to do what Snowden did, right? It doesn't have to be the exact same way, but you're going to lay all the facts out right then and there. You're not going to say, hey, I know A, B, and C. Guess what? I really can't give you information on it then. Then you're not a fucking whistleblower, dude. You're not a whistleblower. And that's what gives us, what gives me, and I know you as well, reserve, right? Like, I look at you and go, I don't know, man, are you telling the truth? You seem like an intelligent guy. Could you have potentially held that position? I could see it. I can buy that. But at the same point in time, I'm not buying what you're telling me because you're really not telling me anything. You're just telling me that you know things. That's all you're saying.
Right. It's my most hated thing in the world. I know this, but I just can't tell you guys. But trust me, it's coming. And that goes back to our other buddy right over there, the Corbell story. I don't know, man. I don't know why it's been eating me up a little bit more lately in comparison. I think just coming off the Virginia Guffey story, it's sat in my mind a lot more because you see things like that and you see so many opportunities where potentially more things could have been quelled, taken care of, or resolved if just like somebody opened their mouth and then in unison, other people just sort of step forward. I mean, we went back to like the Hollywood, this is a word I don't want to say because this will probably get our whole channel banned. The Hollywood kids issue and like the Nickelodeon and the Disney shows, right? And I think we even had like an episode that broached that a little bit. But like you go look at that and over the course, I mean, Corey Feldman went on national television on a talk show and said that they're all, peas, big peas, or whatever the stupid ass term they have for it now.
Why can't we say that fucking word on here? I mean, come on.
Yeah, well, on YouTube you can't. Rumble we could.
Jesus Christ.
So he calls them all out and he's completely written off from Hollywood. He never gets a job again. But now you're seeing this all come out, like Drake from Drake and Josh. I don't remember. Is it Drake Bell? Is that his last name? I think Drake Bell. I mean, he comes out and does. I mean, he was like the ringer guest that was in that whole documentary's Quiet on Set about like the '90s kid stars. Nobody expected it because they had a lawsuit, by the way. So people knew that he was coming out about this, and all of his friends outcast from him, and they wrote letters for the guy that was assaulting him all this time. and then it came out. And then you just saw this like rumbling effect of all these other people speaking out. Very much like that Me Too movement, which again, we're not necessarily condoning that because there's a lot of bullshit that comes with it. Mm-hmm. But in any of these scenarios, there's whispers and whispers and whispers of it happening. And those are traumatizing situations that we're referring to. But people found the courage to come out and do it. Years later, but they did, right? Why aren't we doing the same thing? Why aren't you all doing the same thing? Whoever's out there that might be watching this that knows of something. We had Adam Eisenberg on here talking about the events of 9/11, who walked through the Pentagon and saw the charred remains of a human being where half of their face was burnt off, and explicitly said as the first people on site, something is wrong. And, he went in context about how he's sort of changed his life to protect himself and any potential family members that he's got too. There are people that try to speak up, but there are so many others that just don't. And then the ones that actually do just sort of get dismissed. And the ones that want to give us like lollygagging responses, they got all the book deals. They got all the TV spots. Yeah. That's what just drives me crazy, man. It's how much stuff can be resolved. Like, just course correct. Like, I understand it's going to shift things, change people's mindsets, change narratives. That's fine. Sometimes that rapid 90-degree shift is what we need, right? And that's what sets us on the path jumping forward.
You know what? I think a good reason why you don't see more people coming out is, you mentioned this earlier, they're good soldiers, right? Like, I think a lot of these people are just good soldiers. And it's more than just that, right? And I know this is a whistleblower episode. It's not exclusively about UAPs, but I kind of find myself keep going back to that because to me, it's like the most, it's the most fascinating subject out there. It's, first and foremost, we're talking about very high-level government officials that really, truly know the truth, right? Truly know the truth. That sounds stupid. You get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. So you have this very small select group of people that probably know the truth, whether they're in government or they're in some kind of, I don't know, call it a, I actually kind of, I don't want to get a little crazy here, but I think the military-industrial complex is actually tied very much so to that. Mm-hmm. So you've got a small group of people. Then you compartmentalize projects, right? Bob Lazar came out and talked about that, right? What he was working on was very specific. I don't remember exactly. Maybe you do. I think it was kind of trying to reverse engineer a propulsion system. I couldn't give you the specific details of that, but he only knew exactly what he needed to know to accomplish the task they wanted him to accomplish, right? And he could have had somebody else, right? Some other brilliant mind who was brilliant in another way, working on the same craft, but on a different portion of that craft to try to reverse engineer that. And that person only knows enough to work on exactly what they want him to work on, him or her, right? So you've got a very small group of people who know anything to begin with. And then when you do have some other people who are working on it, who do, come into the government and work on it, it's very compartmentalized. And so when you take a look at those things, small group of people, compartmentalization, people who are just very loyal and good foot soldiers, I don't know, man. I think it's tough to get people that really even want to talk out or have enough information to even disclose if they wanted to talk.
And I say this intentionally, the excuse of the compartmentalization bothers me as well. You work in sales, right?
Yeah.
Do you know how they code the software that you're selling?
No, I couldn't care less.
Do you know how they fix it when something goes wrong?
No, I scream from the hilltops to get it fixed, but that's about it.
But you don't know how they make it? You don't know the logic? Do you know what platform it's built on? What coding language?
No idea.
So how are you selling the product?
I don't know.
If you don't understand, have you ever talked to one of the developers?
No.
Have you ever talked to those high-level project managers that have set the roadmap for where the project is going? Have you talked to them one-on-one?
I wouldn't care to.
Right. So the compartmentalization, sure, that happens in every company. People, and happens in my business as well, where like I have people that work on social media that will never talk to our development team. There's no reason to, right? Because they work in, yes, aligned missions because you're working for a company, but they work in separate phases. I was thinking today because I went to the food store today, and for whatever reason, it got me thinking of back in the day when I worked at Super Fresh, greatest young job ever at the time.
You were a fresh boy. I was a shop shit boy.
And I was thinking about it. I'm like, in all my years there, I never once, and I worked there for like 3 years, maybe not that long, but I worked like 5, 6, 7 days a week. I was working a lot. I never once, not once, had a relationship with the people that worked in the butcher area, the deli area, that whole area. Not once. I couldn't, to this day, tell you one single person that ever worked there in my 3 years working there. Not one. I can tell you every other department. I can tell you dairy. I can tell you frozen. I can tell you back office. I can tell you cashier. I can tell you front desk. Every department of the whole store I knew, and I knew almost everybody by name except for the deli. For whatever reason, they were by themselves. Did I know that we can still prepare foods and chop meat? Of course. But we never had a conversation. Ever. Never once. But I wasn't naive to the fact that when I would stock something in that section, what it was for. I understand that maybe you don't see the whole picture. And this is where Bob Lazar's story is really important. Bob was very excluded from everybody. And he was working on propulsion systems, and he was working on it for a government agency. When you're reverse engineering something, the key word there is reverse. It means it already exists. It means you are not building it for the first time. You are not engineering. You are reverse engineering. You are taking something, you are breaking it down, be it your cell phone or a laptop. That's how I learned to fix computers. Is I took a computer and I broke it apart and I tried to fix it. And how I learned on my car too. And let me tell you something. There was a summer when I drove around with no air conditioning and no radio because I couldn't figure it out. You break something down and you figure out how to put it back together. So some indication that the technology exists. There's indicator number one. Number two is you are among the brightest and brainiest in the world if you are getting selected for these types of projects and then being entrusted with the idea that you're going to work on them and reverse engineer them particularly, or maybe you're just engineering something separate. It doesn't matter. It doesn't take a genius to then figure out, well, where did this come from? If you are entrusted with, I'll just use a Lazar story, like a propulsion system, and you can see the materials that you're working with, it's not a far stretch from your experience to understand, like, hey, is this an earthly object here? Is this something that we know of? Understanding the fact that there are black tag projects all over the world in every single government, fine. But you should be able to, and Lazar did this, right? So this is more of a call to everybody else. Like Lazar identified an element that doesn't exist here on Earth, right? Mm-hmm. Well, these things have to be apparent. And that's why that drives me absolutely nuts. The good soldier argument. I hear that all the time too. World War II was full with good soldiers, right? That to me was best echoed from that 2019 incident that parlayed really into 2020. Good soldiers to me are cowards. That's what they are. You're not a good soldier. You're a coward. You don't have.
Talking about the incident that was in the East.
And then no, we're talking about here that locked everything down.
Right.
You're not a good soldier when you're passing these things along. You are a coward when you do something knowing that it is wrong and you just try to say that I'm just following orders. That's cowardly. That's all that is. There's no sugarcoating it. You are a coward. You don't have the gall, the testicular fortitude to stand up and say, what you are asking for me to do is wrong. You cower because you're too worried about whatever it is you're worried about. Getting in trouble, losing your job, or, oh, goodness gracious, like, I don't want to do that. No. You're a coward. And so I never, and to anybody out there that is a whistleblower and that's following along, oh, I just did it because I have to. No. You made a conscious decision as an adult to do what you were told to do. And if that is hiding technology, if that is taking care of somebody that was about to come out about that, that's a decision you made. Don't blame that on somebody else. Take accountability for yourself. Coward. Mr. Phillips.
No, look, I understand what you're saying in that regard in terms of the good soldier thing, but I'm more so, what I mean by that is somebody who has a lot of information, and again, I'm talking about the
Oh, they exist. I'm not saying they don't exist.
And it's just
I'm not saying they don't exist. They definitely exist.
No. I agree with you. And it's I don't think that they see any malfeasance in it, right? It's hey, I work for the government. I'm a patriot. This is what they asked me to do. That's what I'm going to do. And that's just kind of how they look at it. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I think that there's a good portion of people that just kind of feel that way. And I also think that there's probably people out there that have come out and said things, and people just blow them off as fucking lunatics. Not necessarily that they came out on a national platform, right, and made it well known, but I think they probably they're. Let's take Mike Mulligan for example. Okay, Mike Mulligan, who's fantastic sweetheart of a guy, didn't work for the U.S. government, has a fascinating story about an encounter with extraterrestrial life. Listening to his story, you kind of go, okay, is this somebody who really truly had this experience, or is this somebody who maybe isn't the healthiest person, to say it kindly? And so I'm willing to bet that there are other people out there who have come out and said some things, and they're just completely disregarded because people go, yeah, John over there that worked fucking for the Treasury Department says he knows X, Y, and Z about, some top secret UFO shit, and he's fucking nuts. Again, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but I think that those scenarios had to have occurred, statistically speaking. No.
If you have a story out there that nobody else wants to listen to, that people think you're crazy for, that you just don't have a platform to say it on, conspiracyrealist.com, send us an email. We will platform you. We'll hide your face. We'll broadcast it to the world. We'll do anything you want us to do to protect your identity or to not. We want to hear it. Because what you said about Mike Mulligan is true. One of the things he said to us afterwards was thank you. Nobody has ever listened to me. And so I think that is a more likely scenario. I think it's a harder scenario sometimes in this era because you do have platforms that allow you to broadcast that message. And then that doesn't necessarily mean that people will see it. But sometimes if you communicate with the right people, right, an investigative journalist, you have any semblance of information, there are plenty of them out there that you can reach out to. Obviously, we're a very small reach, but we're certainly more than eager to be that bridge to talk to whomever it is. We'll reach out on your behalf. We'll coordinate it with you. We'll be your Corbell, right? It doesn't matter to us, I think what you're saying is true, Mr. Philipps. We're not in this scenario, right? So it is always easier to say than do. I tend to believe, and I tend to think that if it was a matter of changing the course of, like, if I blatantly saw fraud or blatantly saw something that was being intentionally done to harm the greater good, I'd have a hard time not stepping up and saying something and just going on with my life, right? Like it would eat away at my conscience to do that, because as you said before, you think about your family in those times as a whistleblower. Well, you also have to think about your family if you don't whistleblow. If these things that are happening are nefarious and they are world changing, if you know that aliens are coming here and they are scooping people up and dissecting them, or that there maybe is a race coming here that is ready to take us down, don't you think people should be aware of it? Because although it might not happen in your life, what about your children? What about their children? And maybe that doesn't matter to you once you're gone. But then I'd pose the same question as to why you're not doing a deathbed confessional. What does it matter to you then if you're gone? If it doesn't matter to you, what happens on the planet afterwards anyway? It's a challenging one for sure. But I guess my plea is, if you are going to come back out, or if you are going to come out in general, not like that. if you are going to come and make your declaration, if you're going to whistleblow, choose those words carefully too.
Not blow a whistle.
If you are going to whistleblow, don't disappear or don't feed us nonsense after you sell the book, sell the documentary, get on your TV show, do your tours. Provide context or don't. If the stories stop, if they dry up, let them dry up. Just be there as a commentator. You don't have to feed us the nonsense. If for whatever reason you backed off and you just, whatever you had, whatever that information is, you decided, you know what? It's too much for me. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Just say that. Just come out and say it. But otherwise, if you have this information, stop drip feeding it to us, guys. This isn't a paywall, an email marketing campaign. No. Give it all at once. Get it out there. Because once it's all out there, well, what's the worst that's going to happen to you? Because if anything does happen to you, we know where to look because you've just opened the doors on where to look. But the more you keep this stuff tight to your chest and start announcing that, oh, hey, by the way, I'm going down to DC to meet with him, you end up like that Boeing guy who made it a big thing.
That's what I
should have just gotten on the phone and said it. Yeah, go ahead.
That's what I was just going to say to you, right? Like, so, and it's kind of a catch-22, right? You come out, we're urging people to come out and tell their story and whistleblow and not be afraid because it's now out in the public, and if something happens to you, well, we're going to know where to look. But to your point, what about both guys from Boeing? Two of them.
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah.
Don't exist anymore.
But if you just coordinated with each other, if you knew each other and did it like that, or if you just let it all out right out of the gate, just let it all out, then guess what? That threat is alleviated. Or at least it wasn't in vain. And I say that, with as much empathy as possible. I'm not trying to be apathetic when I say that, right? Because you did lose your life. You don't anticipate doing that. But if you're going to announce that you're going to like a congressional hearing or something and like you have all this information, like I got to be honest with you, that's got to be lingering in the back of your mind. And rather than holding that with you, holding the lock and key up here and then seeing what happens, that is not a smart idea, right? Let it all out. Just get it out there. Oh, I don't know, Mr. Phillips. I asked the question at the beginning. I asked the question in the middle. I'm going to ask the question again. Where have all our whistleblowers gone, Mr. Phillips?
I don't know. It is frustrating, though. It is very, very, very frustrating. And it leads me to believe that the more that I think about it, and actually I think I've kind of changed my opinion just throughout the course of this conversation, it just gives me more reason to question the motive and to question the stories of people like, I know I've said his name 20 times tonight, but people like David Grush. Because, I don't know, man, it just doesn't sit right with me. You're really not giving us anything, or Lou Alessandro, right? And now you're fucking making money off selling books. I mean, look at the optics on that. Doesn't look very good to me.
Yep. And there's plenty more. I mean, there's one guy, and his name escapes me right now, but he does the UFO circuit now and talks about all these things, but he was an admitted disinformation agent. And he caused the death of another guy, like, I don't know if it was by suicide or an actual execution, but by basically feeding him false information. And he comes out and says, we say a lot of true stuff, but we also mar it with fake stuff. But like, he's running the UFO circuit and doing all this commentary and stuff. And how do you trust, like, how do you pay to see that guy and believe anything he says when his whole career was spent lying? Now he's just coming out saying, I did lie before, but trust me now because you're paying to see me. So I'm getting paid. He's just doing he retired. He's got his pension. He's bored. He's making more money. That's what he's doing. And it's like, you see that kind of stuff come out there. And again, like, it just cast such a bad picture or painting on this whole industry, this industry that we try to come out and just try to sift through the nonsense, be realists about. And the information that's out there is terrible.
And look, we've talked about this in the past, right? And we know for a fact, because I know exactly who you're talking about. I can't remember his name right now. That that disinformation is intentionally put out there, right? So what better way for the government, or you name the three-letter agency, to make the narrative around certain topics seem like bullshit than to feed bullshit stories, right? Feed a little bit of credible stuff, and then feed 2 more things of bullshit. 1 credible thing, 3 more things of bullshit. Because by the time you're done, people look at it and go, that's fucking nonsense. You expect them to actually believe that? So what better way to get people off your tail than to intentionally put bullshit out there?
Richard Doty was the name of the guy that I was thinking of. It just came to me when I said, I looked it up to confirm it.
Yep.
We're not making any claims here, right? And we're not trying to make any accusations. What we are trying to do is ask each of you that same question. Be transparent with all of us. There's a lot of people that hang on what you guys say, and I'm not suggesting that people can't go out and make money off of this. Hell, if somebody offered us a sponsorship deal for this show, we would absolutely take it, because it's, as much as we do this as our enjoyment, it would be nice, obviously. It's always nice to have some sort of an income from it. I'm not suggesting that you can't do that, especially when you're in a whistleblower space. You are obviously jeopardizing your career and potentially putting your life at risk, as Tim alluded to. If you can monetize that and set your family up, all for that. But to drag people along, to lie, to be vague, it doesn't help anything, right? And there will come a time when, your time is up too. And if that information doesn't get out, it goes with you.
If you ever actually knew anything to begin with.
That's a nice little, I like that, Mr. Phillips. That's a nice little crescendo. There is one truth, though. One truth amongst them all. And that's, if you like and subscribe to this channel, we can continue putting these heartfelt conversations out there for you. So do that. Share it with our friends. Plead to YouTube to stop limiting all of our videos. We can't clean it up anymore, and we just gave up on that. So we're just going to do our thing moving forward. Follow us on Rumble, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, conspiracyrealist.com for all of our other social network feeds. Mr. Phillips, send us home with some closing words for our whistleblowers out there.
Let's fucking go Mets.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, raise your glass to mysteries. This is cocktails, and conspiracies. Thanks, YouTube.